Good morning everybody, it's Reggie time here, and today we're playing a little bit of poker on my new regular site, Sky Poker, with the focus primarily being on trying to find good games to play in and how we can make that work for us as a recreational player. If you are not a recreational player, if you are a player that aspires to be some kind of professional or high volume amateur player, this video isn't going to be for you. So maybe it's for the best if you were to maybe tune out now, because a lot of things I'm going to be saying just aren't going to be applicable to you and your approach to poker. But if you are a high volume player looking for another way, then please do stick around, because there might be some things that we discussed that really do open your eyes somewhat. The video is going to have somewhat of a slow pace to it, because that's what happens when we are a recreational player. We do tend to be playing poker at a much slower pace, but we're compensated for that slower pace by hopefully finding many more plus EV spots. I'm going to start by checking here with my King 7. I don't like to just always bet, especially out of position to regulars. Lambert is a pretty damn solid Sky Poker regular, so I do like to hate using this term, but mix my play up slightly against regulars and not always just do the same thing. Sometimes I would c-bet here, other times I wouldn't, and there's no real rhyme or reason to when I do and don't make these bets. It's just very much on a ad hoc basis. I'm going to go for another check here. It's pretty hard to get value for that hand we have. No, I don't think we're going to bet actually, because he may just call with 2 9s here or something similar. I think when he just calls a turn, after not betting the flop, I don't think he's have too many draws in his range. I think he's way more likely to have some hands with some kind of showdown value. So I think betting's just better there, just in so better than checking. But I'm not looking to play too many pots out of position with Lambert. At this table, I'm going to be looking primarily to play pots with Dambo and Jack Boy. This second table on the left hand side does seem somewhat of a better table. Not familiar with NUFC 46, not familiar with aka Joe. I am familiar with Goose, who's a multi-tabling regular. So what we can do when we're playing regular tables that we can't do if we're playing on speed poker tables is actually target players and kind of build up a dynamic with them, especially players who might think about poker on the same level with us, and you kind of manipulate them. It's hard to manipulate players like Lambert and Goose because they just have their strategies, their formulas, call them what you will, and they don't deviate from them too often. Whereas some of the weaker players in our games, we can frequently just confuse them, make them make lots of mistakes against us, and they're the kind of guys we want to be paying all of our attention to. How do they play their flush draws? How do they play their one pair hands? You kind of know, you can just make some broad assumptions on how regulars approach certain situations, and you can have lots of predefined strategies to use against them. But against the players you don't play too often, you've got to get good at figuring them out pretty quickly. He's going to fold here to Goose's 3-bet. It's 2 6s. It may well be the best hand, but it's not going to be the easiest situation post flop. So comfortable making the fold. We're going to keep opening as many hands as we dare though, because of NUFC and AKHO, who I don't know, who may actually end up being reasonably competent players. But for now, I'm going to assume that because I don't know them, that they're going to be very much leaning towards being on the recreational side. Another one of the benefits of playing regular tables is something that I've talked about a lot in many of my videos, but I'm going to keep talking about because I believe it's very important and very, very underrated, gets a bad press, which is we get to choose who we play with way more often. We've been 2-bet by Goosey. We're just going to make the fold. We have top pair, no kicker. It's a limped pot. Very, very possible. He can just have some very strong hidden hands there. So no problem with just making that fold. If Goose continues to be getting aggressive with me, at some point I will have to just make a decision on whether I'm going to make a stand against him or not. But it's just happened twice in short order. Very most likely occurrences. He's just had two hands that he's been able to raise with. I'm not going to make any quick adjustments. But to go back to the point I was making, when we are playing regular tables, we get to choose who we play against, which is really, really important. If you're a average regular, moderate regular, break-even type of player, or maybe even a losing player, choosing who you play against is going to be a critical part of whether you win or lose at poker, particularly if you're break-even. If you're a break-even player who doesn't really pay heed to game selection, if you're a break-even player who's playing fast fold poker, I would say if you just started practicing a little bit of game selection, it's almost a certainty that you would just become a winning player. Just like that, just for doing something as simple as taking care of who you decide to play your poker against. I'm going to raise here for value, obviously. I'm going to hope he has some kind of two-pair hand. We'll be thrilled if we get 3-bet. Interesting to see what he had there. Did he have something he was slow playing? Did he slow played himself to death? We'll soon find out. So he 3-bet 2 jacks, then couldn't fold the river. So it's definitely a note that we could put on this fella, which was big blind 3-bet JJ. We're going to fold the ace-5 out of position. We're going to put the green tag on in for now with that note. It's not the rest of the notes, but the first notes you ever make on somebody aren't. They're just generally going to be some kind of potted hand history. And then as we get more notes about how he plays his ranges, we can then develop them out of the individual notes into reads or a strategy that we might want to deploy against a certain player type. So yes, as I was saying, going back to the game selection issue, it's something that I've talked about a lot, and it's something I will continue to talk about over and over again for as long as I'm making videos or helping people turn their poker passion into profits. And that is, game selection is critical. If you're lucky enough to be a speed poker player with a good win rate, absolutely hats off to you. I have no problem at all with what you are doing, and I just genuinely tip my hat to you. You are doing something that's quite difficult and you are doing well at it, so fantastic. But for lots and lots and lots of players, that just isn't the case. I'd say for the vast majority of speed poker players, they are either breaking even, failing to beat the rake, or just beating the rake after rake back, constantly striving to improve whilst everyone else is doing the same thing. So you never really, it's just really hard for you to make a breakthrough, because much as you're trying hard to improve, so is everyone you're playing with. So unless you're improving at a greater rate than your opponents, you're never really going to get ahead in the game. You're just constantly going to be working really hard just to stand still in poker. And there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, probably tens of thousands of people out there following that exact model, and then they go to the forums and they're just told, improve, work hard, improve, work hard. And the simplest solution of all is just game select. Just get involved in some more game selecting. Just lose your dependence on volume. Lose your addiction to the action of fast fold poker, and just embrace finding players that you are actually better than and actually making some money from your hobby. It's not a dirty word. Game selection or table selection, bum hunting, call it what you will. It's not bad etiquette. It's not unethical. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But to some people, you would think it was akin to driving a bus full of nuns over a cliff edge. It really isn't. Don't fall for the hype. There really is nothing wrong with being a good game selector. I think we're going to fire a second barrel at this and then just give up on the river. We're trying to make him fold some weak pocket pairs here, some kind of 6x, pocket 7s, maybe pocket 9s, that type of thing. When he check calls twice, I'm not going to empty the clip here. We may even have gone ahead of some of his like pocket 7s. Well, we have gone ahead of some of his range, so we may even win at showdown now. But nope. He had a very passively played ace queen. Fair play to him. I think checking the river there's decent play from him. It's quite likely I'm bluffing when he holds 3 queens and I'm betting. So he can reasonably expect me to bluff again there. I'm absolutely fine with his line. It looks a bit silly sometimes when you check a full house on the river and get no action. But I think he's playing the hand absolutely fine there. And I think my line was fine too, given what I was trying to achieve in the hand. Interestingly, he chose not to 3-bet ace queen, which I think is a fine play too. He clearly wants to keep jack away in the pot. Yeah, all in all, I think it's a well played hand by Mr. Kipling. Played that hand exceedingly well. Those in the UK will get that in joke. Those of you outside of the UK will just think, what? I'm not going to see Member Jacks here. And NUFC bets. I mean, when he bets 60, we kind of have to call, but he took this kind of sizing line earlier, and he had a weaker value hand. Hopefully we just stuck out on him. Hopefully we can get another bet from him, call from and then get him to call our race again. I mean, there are ways we can be beat here. But I think most of the time we're just going to raise, he's just going to call us and show us a queen or an ace. Then we get 3-bet, it does put us in a pretty gross spot, because if he's 3-bet for value, there aren't going to be too many hands that we're beating. But he just finds a fold, which is not ideal. We'd rather have got the call, obviously, but never mind. I'm not aware of Kipling, but until now he's given me no indication that he's in any way some kind of bad player. So I think this table, if I was not making a video, and I was going to go ahead and play a longer session. This is the sort of table I would be looking at thinking maybe I don't need to be at it anymore. Yeah, sure, we have Jack Boy. He's not looking like he's wanting to play big pots, he's looking like he's just wanting to limp around, try and make a hand. So he's just kind of a bleeder. He's nice to have him at your table, but with players like Jack Boy, you want Jack Boy and somebody else who's a net losing player too. Marcus Cat just seems to be a very weak type regular. We know Lambert's a good player. So if I was planning on playing for a lot longer, I would be now looking at lobby and seeing, well, if I wanted to play 2 tables, could I find a better second table than this? There's nothing wrong with this table. We have a losing player who's almost certainly covering the rake, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to just say, oh, we've got 2 tables, both of them have weak players, so we're fine. We should always be looking, if we're going for a recreational, low volume, high win rate strategy, we should be constantly searching the lobby for the very best tables. I'm making this video at lunchtime, midweek. It's not typically going to be the time of day where you would expect to find lots and lots of good games on any poker network. So I'm not going to bother game selecting too hard today, but I think it's a point worth making that this wouldn't necessarily be the best table if we were playing at 7 PM, 8 PM, 9 PM ish, where the traffic on the site is at its highest. And it looks like we're going to get called in 2 spots here. We're going to hope to flop reasonably well. I was quite nervous when these kind of flops come against players like these, like weak type regulars, because it does hit a lot of their range. It also hits a lot of that check calling range that we have crushed too. But yeah, I'm always betting, thinking, oh, wonder how I'm going to respond if I get raised. And usually I'm just coming at it from a bet fold perspective, because players like Marcus Cat, they will limp in, they will just check call all of their medium pairs there, and they will just check raise when they have sets, and that's pretty much Marcus's overall strategy. If we know that, then we can play pretty damn well against it. I'm not sure how many folds we get from Marcus here, but I think because we have some backdoor equity and an overcard, we can make a stab at the flop and then decide whether we're going to barrel off on the turn. And we're probably not going to barrel off on that card. It doesn't increase our equity at all, doesn't increase our fold equity, and Marcus is just bet into it anyway, so makes that really quite easy for us. We're not going to try and make NUFC fold when we have nothing. We're just going to let it pick up the pot. It's a very small pot. We just stabbed the pot because it looked to me like he just limped in. He checked the pot, looked to me like he just had a big ball of nothing. So I was happy just to make a very small bet, trying to make him fold the weakest parts of his range. And it didn't work. So once we get called, bluffing people like Martin isn't going to be, NUSC isn't going to be on my to-do list very often. We're usually going to be looking to value bet versus NUFC. We may switch these tables in a moment because we probably still have another 15 minutes worth or so of footage to record, and I don't really want to be playing 3-handed. But it looks like Chris has come along to save the day on table 1. If the tables do get significantly worse, I probably will just pause the video and switch them out for some better tables, but we'll see. If I do it, I will make you aware of what's happening, so the tables don't just randomly change. If you look look back up, you see two different tables and think, oh wow, what the fuck's happened there? I will let you know if I do change any of the tables. It's always nice, by the way, if you can. And it's difficult for me this session because I'm making a video concentrating on things to say to fill the dead air. But it's always nice if you can, if people like Jackboy want to chat. Particularly if no one else is responding to them, to actually respond to players' chats, because people like Jack, they're probably coming to the poker site to play poker, to try and make some money, obviously, but also to maybe have some kind of engagement like they're having now, just chatting away. And I genuinely think it's a shame if regulars can't at least engage with people like Jack somewhat. Bet he versus NUFC, hopefully get some folds. I think it's a real shame if we can't be bothered to engage with the players who are coming for a social experience as much as they are a poker experience, because we probably make decent amounts of money from people like Jack long term. The least we can do is help give them a good experience whilst they hopefully contribute to the poker community. And that might sound really cynical, and it is to an extent. But at the same time, I genuinely do believe it. Jack Boy is coming, he's paying his rate, he's paying his money, he's wanting to get something from it rather than just a silent poker game. And I think the very least we can do is provide him with the chat when he wants it. He might not want it, some players come and don't want to chat. But the ones that do, I think it's important that we try and engage with them where we can. It's harder to do that if we're playing lots of tables. Not too hard to do it if we're playing 4 tables or less. And we're just going to fall to Marcus Cat here when weak type players just take this kind of line. It's almost certainly for value. And we don't beat anything from his value range. Or we beat ready little hands in his value range. We maybe beat some, but it seems unlikely to me. I'm going to make a small 3-bet here against Chris just to try and claim isolation versus him. We don't need to make it too big because his stack size isn't particularly large, and we are folding heavy 4-bets unless he makes it like a click it back or something. But the purpose of this is just to try and hopefully claim isolation against a player that we expect to be some kind of revenue stream for us. I'm not going to sleeve at this board. We don't have any fold equity against an ace, but we do have lots of pot equity that I'd like to realise. Not least that card, which gives us the nuts. I'm going to try and size the bets now just to maybe get some value from his ace X hands. I'm going to make a raise of value here against Jack Boy and fold to any further action. And what do I think you'll call with an ace here? I mean, you might have a straight. It's very easy for him to have a straight here. So I think I'm actually going to target his straights with my bet size and go just a little bit bigger. And hope he has a straight or some kind of 2-pair hand. I don't think you can call this bet very often with just an ace. And unfortunately, it looks like that's all he had. Maybe just a 1-pair type hand. But never mind. Nice bluff. There, just there. Just a following from my example of how it's just, we don't want to be agitating people. We don't want to be irritating players who are coming just for a fun time. We want to try and make their time at the table as much fun as possible. Sure, these guys are paying money for their entertainment. The least we can do is not saying that's entertaining him, but that's a very good fold if he did have top two. Not saying we're entertaining him, but at the same time we're giving him what he's coming for. So it's just nice. It's just nice to be nice. There's been lots of talk on Reddit lately about how toxic the online poker environment is, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. In fact, it's a view that I do actually fully agree with. But that's just my outlook on life in general. It's just to generally just get through it, trying to be as nice as humanly possible, and just not being an ass. So if that means we have a little chat with people and hopefully brighten their day a little bit, whilst hopefully taking their money, well, fantastic. Everyone's a winner there. Everyone's a winner. We could isolate Jack here, but I think King 3 is just a little bit too weak from the cut-off. I think it's a slam dunk isolation race from the button. But Lambert will know what I'm up to. He's a good enough player to not let me get away with constantly isolating Jack Boy. And I think a lot of the regulars on Sky, they just get it. They get that it's not in each other's interest to get in each other's way. And I think the only time you see regulars playing back at each other on Sky is when one of them is getting out of line. It's not something I typically expect to see. There are a couple of regulars on Sky that in my opinion, are needlessly aggressive pre-flop. I understand why regulars need to eat each other in lots of speed poker pools, because it's just reg against reg against reg. Very, very often it's just regular on regular action. So you need to be eating each other. If you're at a table with one regular like Goose here, and we have two players who we suspect are net losing players, not really in our interest to just go for it against each other. There's no reason to. Now, I'm not saying that there's any collusion going on, because there isn't. I've never spoken to Goose in my entire life. But at the same time, I think there's kind of a unspoken understanding between regulars that let's just not get in each other's way, let's just go about our business, and if somebody gets out of line, well, they'll get slapped back into line. But generally, just taking in turns to play hands against the weakest players, and just so that's just make an environment where people aren't constantly just cutting each other's throats. I'm aware how that sounds, and I want to be stressed. It's not in any way spoken about. It's just something that I feel goes on. I don't go out of my way to get in Lambert's face, for example. I don't go out of my way to get in Goose's face. I don't go out of my way to make life difficult for them. And I suspect that they don't go out of the way to make life difficult for me sometimes. And that may just be because they understand they don't need to do that. They may just understand that they don't need to be cutting other regular throats, because there's plenty of money to go around. It's not a dog-eat-dog environment. We're going to double barrel here against Marcus just because we have enough pot equity to do so. And I think that's what's going on Site Sky, because it's not a dog-eat-dog environment. The regulars just leave each other alone much, much more than they do on other sites. And I'm contemplating check calling here, because I think there's a lot of... I mean, we lose to King 10 for these bluffs. I think there's lots of little bluffs they can have, like straight draws. I think he can maybe have pocket pairs. I mean, if he has a jack, he's in the full house. But yeah, to me, he has a jack here on nothing. I hate paying this type of player off, so I think I'm just going to fall. But there are some players that I would definitely check call against there. It just so happens that Marcus isn't one of those players. I'm going to go for a value raise here against Chris and hope Goose clears off out of the way. If Goose doesn't clear off, then I'll respect the fact he almost certainly has a better hand than 2 eights. I think we can definitely get value from Chris there with some straight draws, gut shots, open enders, top pairs, that type of thing. So yeah, just to clear up that point I was making earlier, to the best of my knowledge, there is no collusion, for want of a better word. I'm not saying that for a second, not for a hot second. I don't have contact with everyone. I have contact with 2 Sky regulars who I sometimes chat to in Skype, who I met through when I was making Twitch videos. I almost never speak to them because there's just no reason to. But I do know a lot of them are friendly, and maybe they just play friendly against each other. Maybe that's just the environment on Sky. Whatever it is, I think it certainly makes for a much better poker experience. I'm going to call this open on the button with the King Queen. In regulars eating, regulars eating, regulars. It's not a fun time to play. It doesn't make poker fun for anybody. Well, maybe it does for the psychotic egomaniac rigs. But then, it's just if you think back to how poker was years ago, and you think, listen to all the old school pros talk about how it used to be, and they just didn't go after each other. They used to cut tables up between them. They used to just carve tables up, just not getting each other's way, not cutting each other's win rates. Call again here against Case, because I was going to try and bluff the river if I didn't make a hand. Now this river's actually making me now think we can just check down. I think going to. Yeah, my bluff would not have worked. It's fair to say very much that my planned line to bluff that river there had we not hit. So the river's definitely saved me money. Table. I'm going to just give him that tag for now. I don't think our Case is the worst player I've ever come across. Yeah, it's like the olden days when you used to hear the old pros, and yeah, you're going to laugh at the names I mentioned here. But I mean, these guys were making money from poker from bad players for the longest time. The likes of your Matasaurs, your Helmuths, your Negranos, all them, and they just never saw them going up against each other. When you used to watch all the old high stakes pokers and things like that, very rare you saw regular on regular. They always just sat at a table, 8-handed table with at least 3 recreational rich players on there, and it was just like feeding time at the zoo. The kings of the jungle, if you will, the professional players, they just stayed out of each other's way for the most part. The only time they got each other's way when they both had strong hands. They didn't mess with each other. They weren't 3-bet bluffing each other. And lots of people were getting quite wealthy from poker because of that. Modern poker now encourages a culture of, just eating each other, cutting into each other's win rate, and I don't think it's necessarily the best approach to poker. I'm aware I'm in the minority of that. I'm very old school, totally get it. Well, these methods worked for hundreds of years. Since Black Friday, the landscape has changed. I don't think our kid is ever bluffing here against Butrosk's stack size, so we're just going to fold. Because if he's not bluffing, then Ace Queen is in great shape. So yeah, it's just how poker's been for time immemorial until the last 3 or 4 years. It's only the last 3 or 4 years where it's become en vogue to try and cut other regulars' win rates. Before then, regulars pretty much just stayed the hell out of each other's way. And you can certainly find that environment if you look hard enough online. You can certainly find and recreate that environment without any kind of written agreements. It's all very much just unwritten rules of poker when you're playing in good games. don't kill each other's action. And it just works. It just works. Anyway, table 2 has now gone bad because of Jack disappearing. We've reached a 35-minute point of the video, so that's long enough. You guys indicated a while back that you didn't really want videos that were longer than 35-40 minutes, so with that in mind, we'll wind the video up. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed my interpretation of how I approach poker. And if you have enjoyed it, please do subscribe to my channel. If you've enjoyed it and think, yeah, I want to talk to this guy some more, please do contact me with regard to receiving some coaching from me. But for now, we'll leave it there. Thank you ever so much for watching. Take care, guys, and I'll catch up with you with another video later in the week. Bye bye for now.